Hello, my name's Jack Rourke. And for 25 years, I lived with one question that never stopped tearing me apart. What if the boy she raised alone was mine? I walked out of that hospital with a fresh scar and a shattered soul, left a woman I loved because I thought I wasn't enough. Since then, I've watched strangers raise their kids while I sat in silence, folding takeout napkins alone, wondering if I'd ever get a second chance. Then, one day, I saw him. And on his arm, the exact same scar. But here's the thing. The truth didn't hit like I expected. It hit harder. Have you ever seen something so familiar, it scared you? Let me take you back to the beginning. Ellipsis. It always starts the same way. I sit on the edge of the bed, light leaking in through a crack in the curtains, casting a sharp line across the wall. My boots are by the door. My keys hang on the hook. The trailer creaks when the wind shifts. But I don't move. I just stare at it. That scar, curled like melted wax across my left forearm. People think scars fade. That's a lie. They just sink deeper. Like tree roots. They stop being skin and become memory. I stood up and reached for the coffee pot. Empty. Figures. I didn't bother brewing a new batch. The morning had already soured. Another Tuesday in nowhere, Wyoming. Same as yesterday. I live in a patch of dirt behind an old gas station just off Highway 20. The trailer's mine, paid in full. The view's nothing special, sagebrush. A busted mailbox. And the occasional jackrabbit dumb enough to get close to my truck. It's quiet. I like quiet. I sat out on the steps and lit a cigarette. Even though I promised Claire I'd quit. Claire. Her name still does things to me. She used to say I held my breath every time I said her name. Like it hurt to let it out. She was probably right. She was right about a lot of things. Back then I thought being a Marine made me strong. Now I know it just made me disappear better. The letter came in an envelope that had dust on it. It had been in my mailbox a week. Maybe more. The return address said Vet Connect Foundation, Montana. I flipped it over twice before opening it. Inside was a folded pamphlet and a note. Mr. Rourke, we'd be honored to have you at the Intergenerational Veterans Retreat. October 12 to 16. Helena. Mount. Meals and lodging provided. Stories encouraged. There was a line at the bottom. Handwritten. It's never too late to reconnect. Cute. I crumpled it up and tossed it toward the trash can. Missed. Didn't care. I didn't go to things like that. I didn't talk. Not about the war. Not about what came after. Definitely not about Claire. The wind picked up. Dried leaves scraped along the gravel like bones. I stayed out there till the sun hit the top of the tank behind the station. Then I went back in, shut the blinds, and turned on the radio. Old country. Staticky, but familiar. That night, I dreamt of her. Claire in her nurse's scrubs. Hair pinned back. That smart-ass smirk she used to flash when she caught me staring. We were back in Walter Reed. She was holding a clipboard. I was trying to joke. She wasn't laughing. She just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't wait too long, Jack. Some doors don't stay open." I woke up sweating. The kind of sweat that lives in your spine. My mouth tasted like rust. The air in the trailer was thick. I stood, opened the window, and just breathed. The letter was still there on the floor. I picked it up, smoothed it out. Montana wasn't that far. 3 hours, give or take. 4 if I drove like a sane person. I found my old duffel in the closet. The zipper still stuck. I didn't pack much. A couple of shirts, meds, the photo of Claire I kept in my wallet. She was laughing in that picture, arms outstretched like she was dancing. I took it just before everything went sideways. I grabbed my boots, sat on the edge of the bed again, stared at the scar one last time. Then I said it out loud. The thing I hadn't said in years. "Let's go, Jack, before you lose something else." I wasn't going for the retreat. I was going for a ghost. Ellipsis. His voice. That was the first thing that hit me. Not the face. Not the scar. The voice. It came from the other end of the registration tent. Just outside Helena. Crisp air. The smell of pine and diesel from parked trucks lingered in the wind. The place was crawling with all kinds of veterans, young, old, amputees, stoics, loudmouths, some with dogs. I'd barely spoken a word since I arrived. I was sipping lukewarm coffee from a styrofoam cup. filling out the forms I'd already read 3 times. When I heard it. My name's Ben Halloran, U.S. Army. My mom was a nurse, Claire Halloran. Everything in me just stopped. The name, that damn name. I dropped my pen. The guy at the table didn't notice. No one did, but I heard it like a shot. Claire Halloran. I looked up, and there he was. Mid-20s, lean but sturdy build, messy brown hair under a backward ball cap, eyes sharp, shoulders a little tight, like he was used to waiting for the next bad thing. That kind of posture didn't come from good parenting. It came from life punching you early. I kept my distance, watched. Told myself it couldn't be. Told myself I was just rattled. But my gut had its own opinion. And it was screaming. Later that afternoon, there was a group hike around the edge of the retreat center. I joined, mostly to blend in. The woods smelled like fall, dry bark, brittle leaves. The trail was narrow, and we moved in silence mostly. Boots crunching earth in a rhythm that felt familiar. Like patrol. Ben was ahead of me by maybe 5 steps. He reached up to wipe sweat from his brow with the inside of his forearm, and that's when I saw it. The scar. Same arm, same shape. Not exact, but damn close. A long, twisted, silver burn that curled near the elbow. I stopped walking. My heart kicked hard in my ribs. It wasn't just similar. It was the same pattern. Like someone had dragged a branding iron across our skin with the same damn hand. That wasn't coincidence. That was DNA. I fell to the back of the group. Couldn't breathe right. My legs didn't feel like mine. That night, I skipped dinner and sat by the fire pit alone. Other vets laughed, traded stories, passed around flasks like it was old times. I just sat there, staring into the flames, playing memories like a film reel I didn't want. Walter Reed. That hospital bed. Claire brushing hair from my face, smiling through tears. I'm pregnant, she'd said. And I'd stared at her like she'd thrown a grenade in my lap. I told her I wasn't ready. That I was broken. That no child should be born from what I had left in me. She didn't beg, just looked at me like she knew. Then she said the thing that still crawls under my ribs. I don't need you to be perfect. Jack, I need you to stay. I didn't. I left the hospital the next morning. No goodbye. I ran, like a damn coward. And now here I was. Sitting 50 feet away from a man who might be the boy I walked away from. And he didn't know. God help me, he didn't know. Later that night, I went back to the bunkhouse they'd assigned me. The walls were thin, the bed too soft. I sat on the edge again, same position I took every time I was about to make a choice I couldn't undo. I pulled out my wallet. The photo of Claire was still there. Same grin, same light in her eyes. She looked like someone who could fix things. And she tried. I thought about the scar again. How pain leaves marks that don't match the injury. How maybe I gave that scar to Ben, not by touch, but by absence. I whispered her name once. Just once. Claire. The room didn't echo. But something inside me cracked. That can't be coincidence, I whispered. But deep down, I knew. I'd seen that scar before, in the mirror. Ellipsis. I told myself it was just a scar. But I couldn't stop following him with my eyes. Ben was in every group, every meal, every shared circle at the retreat. And so was I. Just always 2 chairs away. Always quiet, always watching. He laughed easily. The kind of laugh that made you believe he hadn't been crushed by life yet. Or maybe he had and was just damn good at hiding it. The way he carried himself. Though, there was something familiar in the way his hand hovered over his cup before grabbing it. In the way he paused a second before answering a direct question. Like he'd learned to filter himself young. I knew that feeling. I still lived it. Back in my bunk, I started digging. Used the retreat center's Wi-Fi, slow as molasses but good enough. I typed, Claire Halloran obituary, into the search bar like I was defusing a bomb. There it was. Claire D. Halloran, passed away March 17, 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Fought it for 5 years. Survived by her son, Benjamin. My throat tightened. There was a photo, one of those black and white ones. Clearly taken at home. She was older, thinner, but her eyes hadn't changed. Still warm, still clear. Next to her was Ben, maybe 23 in the picture. Arm around her, same jawline, same storm behind the smile. I clicked through to a blog post. A fundraiser Claire's friend had set up. In the description, she'd written, "Claire raised Ben alone. She never told him who his father was. Said it wasn't the man who left, just the man who stayed gone." I shut the laptop and sat there in the dark. My chest felt tight like someone had turned the air to mud. She didn't tell him. She didn't tell him it was me. Maybe she figured I didn't deserve to be remembered. And maybe she was right. The next morning, I skipped breakfast, found a spot under the pines behind the main lodge. I needed quiet, but quiet doesn't work when your mind's screaming. I pulled out a pocket knife and started whittling a twig, just to keep my hands busy. My dad used to do that when he was thinking. Funny the things that come back when your world shakes. All I kept seeing was Ben's scar. The way it caught the sunlight like mine used to. I rubbed my own through my shirt sleeve. It felt like it was burning again. Around noon, I tried to talk myself out of it. "You don't know for sure," I muttered. "You're projecting. It's just the name, just the face, just the scar." But even my excuses sounded like lies now. By dinner, I was on edge. My hands wouldn't stay still. My voice caught in my throat every time someone asked me to share. I shook my head and mumbled something about not being a talker. That night, I cracked. I found the bathroom by the end of the hall. Checked to make sure no one else was inside. Looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. Not just the beard or the creases. The eyes. The corners of the mouth. The part that hadn't changed. "You walked," I whispered to my reflection. "You left her. You let her raise him alone." My fist clenched before I knew it was happening. I punched the mirror. The glass spider webbed. Pain flashed, sharp and stupid. Blood ran down my knuckles. I stared at it like it wasn't mine. My breath came shallow. My body shook. And somewhere in that silence, I heard her voice again. "Don't wait too long." I sat down on the floor, hand still bleeding, and said it for the first time in over 2 decades. "I'm sorry." Not loud, not heroic, just honest. I wasn't afraid he wasn't my son. I was afraid he was, and that I'd already lost him. Ellipsis. He sat across from me at lunch. Same eyes. Same silence. We hadn't spoken a word to each other since the hike. I wasn't sure he even knew I existed. But that day, the mess hall was full. And somehow, we ended up across the same table. He was eating chili out of a paper bowl, tapping his spoon against the rim between bites. Nervous habit. I had the same one with forks. "I'm Jack," I said finally. He looked up, blinked. Then nodded. "Ben." Short pause. Then he asked, "You Army?" "Marines," I said. "You?" "Army. Iraq." That was it. Just that. The code exchange. Old soldiers don't small talk. We sift. He went back to his chili. I sipped my black coffee. It tasted like motor oil. "You from around here?" I asked. "Nah," he said. "Mom raised me in Colorado. Small town. Elk Ridge. Ever heard of it?" I hadn't, but I nodded anyway. Then he added, "She was a nurse. Claire Halloran." He said the name like it wasn't loaded. Like it didn't crash through me like a train. He hesitated. "She passed 2 years ago." "I'm sorry," I said. And meant it. He gave a half smile. "Yeah, me too." I wanted to say something. I wanted to say everything. That I'd known her, that I loved her, that I'd left. But instead, I picked at my food. "She used to talk about Walter Reed," he said out of nowhere. Told me stories, said she met someone there. But she never said his name. I looked up. His eyes were on mine. Then he dropped the bomb like it was nothing. "She always said, you'll know him if you see him." My hands went cold. My heart hitched. I dropped my spoon. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Just hot in here." It wasn't. It was freezing. We didn't talk much after that. I excused myself before dessert. Said I had a call to make. Outside, the air bit my skin. Snow was coming soon. I walked down past the cabins. Found a bench near the woods. And sat. My mind was racing. That phrase, "you'll know him if you see him," it circled like a hawk overhead. Was that Claire's way of leaving a breadcrumb trail? Or was she playing God, making sure I'd eventually be forced to look him in the eye? And what was I supposed to say? Hey, son, sorry I missed everything. Want to catch a ball game? I pulled out my phone. Opened the last photo I had of her. It was taken the day before I left. She was smiling, but her eyes weren't. I zoomed in on her face. Tried to remember the sound of her voice without it cracking in my head. Then I opened a notepad app and typed. Ben Halloran, age 25, son of Claire Halloran, possible connection? I paused, deleted the last sentence. Then typed. Likely son. I didn't hit save. I just stared at it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The mattress was too soft again. Or maybe it was my conscience chewing through the padding. I ended up in the common room around 2 a.m., sitting near the fireplace while the embers glowed like tired stars. Another vet came in, Ray, a Vietnam guy with a limp and a sharp tongue. He poured himself some decaf and sat across from me. You look like someone who found a ghost, he said. I didn't answer. He sipped. You know, when I came back, I thought the worst thing I did was survive. Now I think the worst thing was staying silent. I didn't ask him to explain. I knew exactly what he meant. She said I'd know him if I saw him. Ben repeated. I stood there, jaw clenched, wondering if that was a gift or a trap. Ellipsis. I found the book she gave me, dog-eared, dusty, and hiding something I didn't expect. It had been shoved deep in the duffel bag I hadn't touched in years. The cover was cracked, pages yellowed. It was the things they carried. Tim O'Brien. Claire gave it to me the day I walked out of Walter Reed. This isn't about war, she said back then, pushing it into my chest. It's about what war leaves behind. I never opened it. I wasn't ready. Until now. I sat at the edge of my bunk. The retreat outside still buzzing with late morning workshops and laughter I couldn't make myself join. I opened the cover. A note slid out. Folded in 4. Faint handwriting. Hers. If you ever see that scar again, don't run. See. My stomach dropped. It wasn't long, just that. But I read it 5 times. Don't run. That woman knew me like no one else ever has. She knew I'd bolt before I'd face anything real. Knew I'd rather disappear than be forgiven. And yet, she left me a way back. Even after all that silence. Even after I left her to carry it alone. I pressed the note between my fingers like it might disappear if I let go. The edges were worn. I could imagine her folding it, hesitating, sliding it into the book, maybe thinking, he'll find this someday, if he's got any damn guts left. The next hour passed in a kind of haze. I walked across camp to the small health outpost they'd set up for minor checkups. There was a sign outside that read, Wellness Station. Funny word. I hadn't felt well since 2004. Inside, I asked the nurse, young, kind, used to dealing with men who grunt instead of speak, if it was possible to do a private DNA test. Between you and a family member? She asked. Maybe, I said. She raised an eyebrow. We don't do paternity here. But we can collect and ship if you've got a lab already lined up. I nodded. I do. I didn't, but I'd figure it out. She handed me 2 swab kits, labeled them discreetly, and walked me through how to use them. I thanked her and left. Back in my bunk, I stared at the kits. My hand shook when I opened mine. Swabbed, sealed, done. Ben's was trickier. That night, after the group bonfire, I waited outside the lodge. Told him I was collecting saliva samples for a PTSD genetics study. Just a casual thing. Would he mind? He looked skeptical. You serious? I shrugged. Some science folks think certain gene markers are linked to how we process trauma. Totally anonymous. You don't have to. He looked at the kit. Sure, why not? I felt like trash lying to him. But I told myself, better a lie now than silence forever. He handed the swab back. I sealed both kits and labeled them JR and BH. Then emailed a lab I found online. Overnighted the samples through the main office. Done. Nothing left to do now but wait. The next morning, I sat alone with the book again. I flipped through the underlined sentences. Claire had made notes in the margins. Phrases like, "This is Jack," or "He wouldn't say this, but he felt it." I saw myself in those pages. The me I never had the guts to show. The me she saw anyway. And for the first time, I started to imagine what it might be like to say the words, "I'm your father." The idea terrified me. Not because I feared rejection, but because maybe, just maybe, I didn't deserve a second chance. Still, I waited. 2 days, my stomach in knots. Then the email came. Subject: DNA results, Halloran, Rourke. I didn't open it right away. Just stared at the screen. My finger hovered over the mouse. "Come on, Jack," I muttered. "Don't run." Then I clicked. The nurse sealed the samples. "Results in 48 hours," she said. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ellipsis. The envelope was thinner than I expected. Just one sheet of paper, and everything I feared. I printed it out at the retreat office. The printer made that slow, grinding sound that stretched the weight like punishment. The paper slid out crisp, warm, and completely indifferent to the weight it carried. I didn't open it there. I shoved it into my coat pocket like a loaded weapon and walked away from the noise. The buildings, the smiling strangers with matching lanyards and optimism in their voices. I found a picnic table near the tree line, sat down, breathed twice. Then I unfolded it. Probability of biological relationship, 0.0%. Conclusion: not related. I stared at the words like they were in a language I'd never seen. I read them again, and again. I didn't move. Didn't blink. A breeze moved through the trees behind me. Somewhere in the distance, someone laughed. A dog barked. My world didn't end. It just flattened. Ben wasn't my son. All this weight I'd been carrying, all this guilt, all the things I wanted to fix, it wasn't mine to fix. And somehow, that made it worse. I crumpled the paper, uncrumpled it, folded it twice, neatly, like a flag, then shoved it back in my pocket and walked. No direction, just away. Back in my bunk, I poured the emergency whiskey I kept hidden in a shaving kit. Hadn't touched it in 10 years. Swore I never would again. But that promise belonged to a different version of me. One who still believed in closure. The burn hit hard. The second swig went down easier. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, legs stretched out in front of me. The light above buzzed faintly. My hand wrapped around the bottle like it might tell me what to do. And then, I saw her. Not in a hallucination kind of way, but in memory, clear as a bell. Claire, standing in my old apartment doorway, arms crossed, rain dripping from her coat. "You always waited for permission to love," she said. "And you always waited too long." I set the bottle down, hard. That evening, there was another campfire. I almost didn't go. But something in me, pride, shame, maybe just exhaustion, dragged my boots through the dirt and into the circle. Ben was there, sitting across the fire, his face lit orange and gold by the flames. He laughed at something someone said, then looked up and saw me. Our eyes held. He gave a nod, nothing more. And I couldn't do it anymore. I stood, walked around the fire, sat beside him. "I need to tell you something," I said. He turned toward me, his face neutral, curious. I took a breath, swallowed the lump in my throat. "I thought you might be my son." His expression didn't change. "I had a relationship with your mother, Claire, back at Walter Reed. I left. I was scared, broken, stupid." I glanced away, toward the fire. "I never knew for sure. And when I saw you, heard your name, I hoped." Silence. I tested. I added, "Got the results today." He didn't move. "It says we're not related." I finished. Another silence, but the wrong kind. Not heavy, not warm. Just hollow. He finally spoke. "I don't know what to say." "Yeah," I muttered, "me neither." I stood to leave. But before I walked off, he asked quietly, "Did you love her?" I turned back. "Yes," I said. "Still do." Then I walked away. That night, I didn't drink again. I didn't sleep much either. But I didn't run. That had to count for something. Ben didn't say a word. He just walked away. I'd lost him, and I never even had him. Ellipsis. I woke to a knock. And the words that changed everything. We need to talk. Ben stood at the doorway, holding an envelope. His face was unreadable. No anger, no warmth, just something brewing under the surface. I sat up, rubbed the sleep from my eyes. The kind of sleep that doesn't rest you, just shuts you off for a few hours. You got a minute? He asked. I nodded and motioned him inside. He stepped in, looked around the bunk like he was scanning it for clues about me. I watched him glance at the old photo of Claire on my desk. I hadn't even realized I'd left it out. He didn't ask about it. Instead, he held up the envelope. I sent my own sample. He said, didn't trust yours. That stung more than I expected. But I couldn't blame him. Same lab? I asked. He shook his head. Different one, independent, my own contact. He handed it over. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. He said it before I could speak. You're my father. Silence swallowed the room whole. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My knees buckled before my words could form. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. Ben just stood there, watching, waiting. I swallowed. You sure? He gave a small, sharp nod. Claire told me once, he said, that if I ever saw you, I'd know. But I didn't. Not really. Not until I looked at that photo. And your face. And the way you move. I looked at the envelope in my hand. I tested first. Negative. I said, they must have messed it up. Yeah, he said quietly. They did. For a second, I felt anger start to rise, toward the lab. Toward the first result. Toward the universe for screwing with me. But mostly, what I felt was a wave of something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Relief. Pure, wrecking, soul-splitting relief. I wanted it to be true. I said. He nodded. I didn't know what I wanted. He replied. But when I saw that scar, when I saw how you looked at me, I started to hope. I let the words sit. Then I stood, slowly. Held out my arm. He looked at it, at the scar. Then he rolled up his sleeve. Held his next to mine. Same arm. Same twist. Same mark that no doctor could fully fix. He reached out, for the first time. And we shook hands. But it didn't feel like a handshake. It felt like something that should have happened 25 years ago. It felt like a door opening. That afternoon, we skipped the planned workshops. Took a drive instead. I let him pick the music, he picked Johnny Cash. Which felt like a sign. We didn't talk much, just let the road do what it does best. Create space where conversation can stretch out safely. We stopped at a lake. Flat, quiet, ringed with pine and fog. Nobody else around. Sat on the hood of my truck, passing a soda between us. After a long silence, Ben finally said, she died thinking you weren't coming. I didn't respond. She told me she forgave you. He added, but she never let go of the pain. I nodded. That's fair. Another pause. Do you want to know her? He asked. I looked at him. I already do. That night, we sat by the fire pit. Just the two of us. No other vets. Just stars overhead and the kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. She wrote something for you. Years ago. I wasn't supposed to give it to you unless I was sure. He handed it over. Claire's handwriting. The same loops. The same slant. Jack. If this ever finds you, I hope you've stopped running. I hope you found a way back to yourself. Ben deserves that, and so do you. We all survived, but maybe now, you can finally live. See. I folded it gently, slipped it into my chest pocket like armor. He sat across from me. Same eyes, same silence. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like home. Ellipsis. The cemetery was quiet. But I swear, when we laid the flowers down, the wind stopped just long enough to hear her voice. It took us 7 hours to drive from Helena to Elk Ridge. Ben offered to do the whole drive, but I insisted on splitting it. I needed the wheel. Needed the feel of movement, of going somewhere that mattered. We didn't talk much on the way. Just let the radio fill the silence with soft country and static. The town hadn't changed much. According to Ben, a gas station, a diner, a post office, and the same rusting water tower that had been there since the 70s. Claire was buried on a hill just outside town, where the trees bowed slightly from the wind and the grass stayed stubbornly green even in late fall. We stopped at the flower shop on Main Street. Ben picked wildflowers, lilacs, daisies, Queen Anne's lace. She loved these, he said. I nodded. I remembered. The cemetery gate squeaked when it opened. The gravel crunched beneath our boots. No one else was there. Her grave was simple. No marble, no angels, just a small stone with her name and the years. Claire D. Halloran. 1968 to 2023. Beloved mother. Fierce soul. I stood there longer than I expected. Longer than I thought I could. Ben placed the flowers gently at the base. I knelt down, rested a hand on the stone. The words wouldn't come easy. But I said them anyway. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't stay. I never stopped loving you. The wind blew through the trees above. Leaves rustled like whispers. And for a split second, it felt like something passed between us, her and me, like a thread pulled tight. Then finally let go. Ben didn't interrupt. He just stood beside me, head bowed. Then he said quietly, "She kept your picture in her jewelry box. Said it was a different kind of truth. I never understood what she meant until now." We left in silence. Back at his house, small, clean, tucked behind a line of pine trees, he opened the door like it wasn't a big deal. "Guest rooms down the hall," he said. "Bathrooms to the right. It's not fancy, but the water's hot and the roof holds." I stepped inside. Everything smelled like cedar and coffee. On the living room wall, there was a blank space between two framed photos, one of Ben in uniform, the other of Claire holding him as a baby. I reached into my coat and pulled out a copy of the photo I'd carried for years. Claire in scrubs, standing in front of Walter Reed, laughing. Alive. "I brought this," I said. He looked at it, nodded. "That's the one she used to keep in her wallet." I handed it to him. He didn't hesitate. Picked up a small tack and pinned it right in the center of that empty space. Now, she was between both of them. Right where she should have been all along. Later that night, we ate sandwiches and sat on the porch. Stars were out. The world felt slower. Ben handed me a beer. I took it. "You staying long?" he asked. "Depends," I said. "You okay with that?" He shrugged. "You're not a stranger anymore." That hit harder than he knew. We sat there a while, drinking, saying nothing, just the creak of the porch swing and the hum of night bugs. "I never thought I'd be a dad," I admitted, "especially not like this." He smirked. "Well, you're late, but you showed up." I raised my bottle. "Here's to showing up." He clinked his bottle against mine. And for the first time in a long damn time, I didn't feel like a ghost. I stood back from the photo and whispered, "Welcome home." Ellipsis. The first line of the book wasn't about war. It was about forgiveness. I stared at it on the laptop screen, blinking cursor daring me to backspace. But I didn't. It read, "Some men come back from war with scars they earned in battle. Others come back with scars they gave themselves, for the things they ran from." That was my truth. And I was finally ready to tell it. I started writing 6 weeks after I moved in with Ben. Just a little every morning, before coffee. Before the news. Before I could talk myself out of it. I didn't write about the missions or the gunfire. I wrote about silence. About guilt. About what it means to be alive but feel like you shouldn't be. The title came easy. Surviving wasn't enough. Ben read parts of it. Sometimes he'd just nod. Sometimes he'd ask questions I didn't expect. "Why do you think you didn't deserve her? Did you ever picture me as a kid? Were you afraid of being loved? Or of losing it again?" He didn't ask like a son interrogating a father. He asked like a man trying to understand his own story by finding the missing piece. One evening, he brought home a flyer. Local veterans event, speakers, book readings, open mic. "You should go," he said. I shook my head. "I don't do microphones." He shrugged. "Then do it scared." So I did. That night, the small town rec center smelled like gym socks and burnt coffee. But it was packed. Veterans from all over the county. Wives, daughters, grandkids, Everyone looking for some kind of echo that sounded like home. When they called my name, I almost didn't stand. But then I saw him, Ben, standing by the wall, arms folded, just watching. And I remembered Claire's note. If you ever see that scar again, don't run. I stepped up to the mic. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. Not this time. I used to think the hardest thing about war was surviving it. I said. But the hardest part was learning how to live afterward. I looked around, saw heads nod, eyes locked. I met someone here recently. Someone who carries a scar on his arm that looks just like mine. But more importantly, he carries the parts of me I thought were dead. I didn't raise him, I didn't earn him, but somehow, I still got another chance. A pause, a deep breath. We all come back with scars. But some of us are lucky enough to find someone whose scars look just like ours. It was quiet after that. Not out of awkwardness, out of respect. A silence full of weight. When I stepped down, Ben was already waiting by the side. He didn't say much. Just clapped me on the back. And for the first time, it didn't feel like goodbye to a version of me I hated. It felt like a beginning. Later that night, we sat on the back porch again. Same swing, same quiet sky, same 2 beers sweating in the cool air. Ben leaned back. You know, he said, you're not too bad at this whole dad thing. I chuckled. Takes me a couple decades to warm up. We sat a little longer. Then he said, thanks for giving me a second chance. I looked over. No, I said, thank you for giving me one. We both survived, I say. But now, we're finally living.